And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today we're taking a look at the newest addition into the Catan series, and that is Catan Merchants of Europe. Now, I won't lie, when I got this one I said, really? Settlers of Catan, Merchants of Europe. Woo! Because we don't have enough Merchants of Europe games. Okay, but I do like Settlers of Catan, and I've enjoyed most of these games that have come out thus far. The Germany one I enjoyed. There's a lot of the series, and Klaus Teuber does a good job. How does this one translate? Well, let's take a look at how the game plays first, and then we'll be back. There's a lot of pieces in this game, but before I do everything in this game, there is actually two sides to the board. They're both basically the exact same map, except this one is for a shorter game, so you can see there's fewer spots here on the side. This is the longer full game. I would recommend playing the shorter game actually, but each of these on the side of the board, each player, and there's up to 4 players, will put a bunch of these trade tokens, and then you'll put cities on top of many of them, or trading posts, I'm sorry, I'm calling them cities. You're also going to put several trading posts on the board, either in predetermined spots, or taking turns putting those out, and next to each of these, you'll put some trade routes, which are roads. Now, it can be confusing. This is a difficult review to do in some regards because many of you folks who are watching the review know how to play Settlers of Catan, and many of you do not. So I'm going to just act as if no one knows how to play Settlers of Catan, and for those of you who do know how to play, you're just going to have to get the rules differences as I go through this. On a player's turn, the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to roll 2 dice. Now, if they roll a number that is not 7, for example, here I roll a 5, everybody who has a trading post that's next to a 5 on the board is going to get a resource card of that type. So orange has a trading post next to this one, even if it wasn't orange's turn. Let's say it was white's turn. The colors are red, orange, white, blue, by the way. Let's say it was white's turn and they rolled it. Orange would still get 1 grain card. There are 5 types of resources, and these resources match the different spots on the board. You have wool, lumber, grain, salt, and ore. And so each of the spots on the board will give you those, and you'll notice there are different numbers all over the board. Some of those numbers will be rolled more often, but there is no 7. That is because if you ever roll a 7, a few things happen. First of all, you will be able to move this thief here anywhere on the board, whoever's turn it is, and you will place it on top of a spot, and that spot will not produce resources until that guy is moved. Also, you will be able to steal 1 card from one of the trading post players who are next to the thief where you put them. And then thirdly, if anyone has more than 7 resources in their hand, they have to discard down to half of those. So you got to be careful as you move them around. If you don't roll the thief, though, let's say I rolled that 5, orange here would get 1. If there was a red one here, orange and red would both get 1. If one person had 2 next to it, they would get them, and there's multiple numbers all over the board. After that happens, the active player may then trade with other players. Oh, I guess I need to mention something very important. If you don't get any resources, doesn't matter if it's your turn or not, if you get no resources, you will get a gold. Hooray! After that, everyone gets to trade. You can trade back and forth with other players. Only with the person whose turn it is, though, you can trade back and forth. You can also trade with the bank 3 cards of the same type for any card of your choice, or 2 gold for anything of your choice. So gold can be very useful in this regard. You then can build different things using your resources, and you can see this card here shows you the different things that you can build. For example, you can buy a card if you pay a wool and a salt. These development cards are all sorts of different things are involved in here. Some of them let you move the robber on the board. Some of them let you move your merchant. Some of them let you, there's not a whole lot of different cards here, but they basically let you, like this gives you lets you put out 2 trade routes for free on the board. Okay, other things you can build more trade routes, you can build merchants, you can build a caravan, or you can move your merchant or caravan with resources. Trade routes are the easiest thing to talk about because you simply add them. They're next to one, they'll start next to one of your cities, and you can build more of them out as time goes by, as you move these trade routes. You will notice that some of the spots on the board have double arrows on them. That means when you build a trade route on one of these, you can instantly place another trade route out. So they kind of are like accelerators. Now, one of the things you're going to want to be building is traders. And these gentlemen will start at one of your spots when you build them, and you can pay wheat to move them 3 intersections. When they get to an empty spot, if they end their turn at an empty spot, they will then basically transform. They disappear, and you have a new trading post there. So that's how you get more trading posts. If that trading post happens to be next to a spot that has no number on it, then we will go over here, look for the matching color, draw one. Hooray! It's a 5, and I will get to put that one on that spot. And now I'm next to this trading post happens to be next to a 12, a 6, and a 5. It's a pretty good spot to be in. 12's not so great, but that 5 and 6 will get me a lot of resources. If you go next to a spot and there is no more next to the board, then you can take one on the board and move it to the new spot, which can be kind of a pain for the person that you moved it from next to. Now, when you put these trading posts out, they will produce resources and such for you. But also, as you put each trading resource out, trading post out, it will release another resource. You start with one resource that you can get rid of, but you can't get rid of more of them until you've released them by building all your trading posts. So you're going to be building caravans to do that. What you'll do with your caravan, and the caravan is kind of, it looks like, well, some people call it a nuclear missile. We call it all sorts of things, but I can see that it's a caravan from the back. But, well, anyway. So when you build a caravan, they will move along the trading routes. You pay salt to move them. If they get to a trading post of another player that does not have a resource underneath it, and if you have a resource in front of you, you can drop that resource off, and you got rid of one of the resources. The way to win this game is to get rid of all your resources. So that's what you're going to want to do. You want to build these, but each of these places can only have one. There's also a few other rules, like when you connect two places of opposite. Let's say I build these, red builds a road like this. Now this orange post is connected for the first time. It wasn't connected to the network of posts. For the first time, it will then, the 2 players that it's connected by the shortest distance, which would be red and orange, will each get gold equal to the distance between them. So they would each get 3 gold for the trade routes that connect them. And then there's a few other things as you go along, but basically you're trying to build your trading posts as quickly as you can, and then get rid of your trading goods using your caravans. First person to get rid of all their trading goods is the winner. Now, even though this game is based on the very popular game Settlers of Catan, I would be very hard-pressed to say that it feels that much like Settlers of Catan. This feels much more, because it is, a pick-up and delivery game. There's some neat concepts in here I like. Okay, let's talk about what they are. First of all, I like the money. I think it's a great thing if you don't get any resources. In fact, there were some turns where I would get a resource and I'd be like, oh, I'd rather have gotten a coin this turn. But you get that money. This has been a variant that people have instituted in Catan since way back when I always call it the welfare rule. If you don't get anything, you get at least something. And it works well, especially since you can use that money to trade in and get the resources you need. I like spending the resources for movement. I like the moving pieces on the board. I like the fact that when you build to those outer cities, in fact, I didn't show you in the rules, but some of those outer cities, when you build in them, you get some coins just for building in them. But there's only just enough spots to put the different trading posts that people have. And you need to get those trading posts out so that you free up your own resources, but you need your opponents to get those trading resources out. And there's sometimes a bit of a race, because since each trading post can only have one resource, I don't feel like having to spend resources to make my guy go all the way to Spain when there's a guy sitting right here next to me that I can go and drop a resource off. But you just did, so thanks a lot, buddy. So there's that back and forth. The trading is interesting. Sometimes you will not trade with somebody, not because the trade they're offering you is bad, but because you know you're giving them cards that they can move, which will hurt you in the long run. At the same time, the game has that reason for you to connect with other people, to connect those. And since you're putting out a ton of those trade routes, I like those arrows that let you put out extra ones. There's just some really neat things in this game. And it still has that Settlers of Catan background where you're rolling dice and you're moving the rob around. The card deck is not as exciting in this one because in the original Settlers of Catan, there's points in the card deck and there's some other things. Here it has some very useful cards, don't get me wrong, and sometimes when you have the resources to buy a card, it's a much better deal because you buy them to get 2 trade routes, you get to move the robber or whatever. Those can be useful. I just don't think they're as awe-inspiring as sometimes the original game. You're like, oh, 3 cards, I won. And you can also watch how the game is progressing. You can see how many trade routes everybody has. It's very easy to track who's winning. I would very much recommend the short game or a medium game, which is the longer game. I just would take off 2 of those trading posts. As dumb as it sounds, taking off just 2 of them will really shorten the time of the game down. The game on the box here, let's see, it says it takes 2 hours. I don't like the fact that this takes 2 hours. This is not a 2-hour game. This should be a 1.5 hour game, I think. And I know that's totally just made up off the top of my head, but really I don't want to play this game that long because I feel very samey after a while. But if you play the short game, or maybe just a little bit more than the short game, add a couple more trading resources to each person, I don't think it's as big of a deal. It's a decent game. It's a good entry in the series. Not my favorite by far, but for people who like pickup and delivery games, this is one that they're really going to get into. So despite the name, this is a good game. Catan Histories, Merchants of Europe.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.
Shut the door!